Degenerate.
Swans.
Swans. Double damage to itself because it has flying.
Let's freaking go, dude.
Jeskai birds.
The time has come. We're sunsetting our Edge of Eternities series of videos here on the MTG Thoughtcast, and that only means one thing. It is the Cards You Missed episode, one of our favorites here on the show. This is the episode where we go through and talk about some of the uncommons or lower rarity cards that are just as exciting and just as juicy as the rares for your commander decks. So if you feel like the spoiler season has gone too fast or the release season has gone too fast, this is the episode for you. Stick around. We're talking about all things lower rarity in Edge of Eternities. And there's some good stuff. I just want you guys to know there's some good stuff in this.
That was 5 whole goods.
5 whole goods. John, other host of the MTG Thoughtcast, how many goods would you give it?
Oh, definitely enough to help you get all the way to the edge of this eternity.
Ooh, yes. So good. We made it through so much of this just restraining ourselves on the edging jokes.
For
now
eternity,
we can just
you would say.
Let them all loose.
Good day, everybody. Hello. We're here. It's the end of the season. We've got the juicy stuff to talk about tonight. But Joseph, if we're interested to keep these brand new cards perfectly safe and sound in our commander decks, who might we turn to make sure that we have the safest and most amazing card protection systems?
Yeah, I might say that you could go to heavyplay.com/MTG Thoughtcast and get 10% off of our favorite gaming accessories, including magnetic deck boxes and playmats and curved sleeves. Those are some of my favorites. And yeah, you can go code MTG Thoughtcast at checkout, gets you 10% off. Shout out to our friends over at Heavy Play. My name's Joseph. I'm the other host here at the MTG Thoughtcast, and you can take that to the bank. What am I talking about? I did this.
We're talking about making
you and forgot to introduce myself.
What we're talking about making fun of you and making fun of me and joining our Discord. You can make fun of both of us collectively. Hey,
meme us into eternity. You can edge the memes for eternity.
Join us over there. We have lots of fun talking about Magic stuff, memes, upcoming spoilers, and releases. So if you're interested, completely free, come join our Discord. Links in the description down below of your favorite podcasting source, including YouTube and Spotify.
Absolutely. If you can't tell, this is the casual episode. We've got it all out of the way. We just get to chill. This is like the old fashioned or like a martini of an episode. Like get through the long day and now we just get to like talk about things that we love, which is cheap cards. One of my favorite things about this series that we do, if you've not been here before, welcome. First of all, thanks for subscribing, all of you subscribers. We've got some new ones lately, and it's great to see everybody. This episode, we talk about budget cards, basically. We talk about like the lower rarity cards and how exciting they can be for your commander decks, because that's most of a deck. Like, you obviously have your exciting rares and your exciting mythics, and we've talked enough and you've heard enough about how exciting all of the rares and mythics are from Edge of Eternities. So it's time for someone to get in the dirt, get in the nitty gritty, start cracking those lander tokens and finding some of the good stuff that can fill out your commander decks, and they're always so cheap. This is the episode too where I usually call like what's going to be the expensive uncommon, and I've not been wrong yet. You guys remember when I talked about Into the Floodmaw? You guys remember when I talked about Stock Up? This is the one you want to stick around if you want to start getting your fingers on some cards that are going to be expensive that are currently cheap.
Do you have one of those on tap ready to go? What's your call out card? What do you think?
I think, I'll talk about the first one. I think that Emergency Eject is going to be, this is my call for the expensive uncommon of this set. So Emergency Eject is 2 and a white for an instant, and it says destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a lander token. So we've seen this effect plenty of times. The ones that say destroy target permanent usually net you a 3/3 of some type for the person whose thing you're destroying. But in one of those sets, I think it was in one of the Eldraines, we got Stroke of Midnight, which was destroy non-land permanent.
Yep.
Its controller creates a 1/1 human token. This, to me, is a strict upgrade of that because it doesn't put a body on the board. It gives them a lander token, which is like a Wayfarer's Bauble. So Emergency Eject just can turn any non-land permanent into a lander token, and I'm thrilled to see that. I will be placed. I play a lot of Stroke of Midnight. I play a lot of Generous Gift, and I think the Stroke of Midnights are going to be replaced with the Emergency Eject. If you disagree with me and you would rather give them a 1/1 token, let me know in the comments down below. But I think that giving a lander token is significantly less valuable than a 1/1 creature that can block. Like in the instance where your opponent has one creature in play and you have this thing that's trying to barrel in that you don't have trample or whatever, the Stroke of Midnight still fogs your creature. Like you're just turning something into a creature that can block. The Emergency Eject completely removes creatures from their board. It also just deals with troublesome enchantments. It deals with planeswalkers, all of these things that, again, you can either give them a 1/1 token with the Stroke of Midnight, or you could just be Emergency Ejecting and giving them a ramp piece. So I'm starting to swap out some stuff for the Emergency Ejects. I'm curious where you fall on the scale of 1/1 token to lander token, John.
No, this card is really cool. It was one of the ones that we called out actually when the preview season was getting started for this set here, and it definitely I like the fact that it does have its multi-flex like purpose here, and there is still value, I would say, to making sure that your opponents are not land ramping. So like maybe 100% replacing this with like say Stroke of Midnight, Generous Gift, things of that nature. But for the decks who would still care about making sure your opponents are not receiving lands in any capacity, the ones that make you the creature tokens, or that makes the creature tokens for them, I should say, those do still have purpose, I would say.
Let me reinforce my argument here. White cares about your opponents having more lands than you. Think of all the things like land tax, Knight of the White Orchid. There's so many things that care about your opponents having more lands than you in white that it actually incentivizes them to not crack the lander token if you have like a land tax in play.
But what I'm looking at with this, it was something that I originally called out with this card, by the way. Note that it only just says you destroy target non-land permanent. It does not say non-land permanent of an opponent controls. What I like of this is a twofold aspect that you can play with this as far as like playing the political game. Obviously, if you are able to get something that you maybe wants to die before this turn 3 and you are in the colors that struggle a little bit on their ramp pieces, you can use this in the same way that you can use something like that's a land that you can crack and kill your own land. Ghost Quarter, that's the one.
Quarter.
Yeah,
Right.
You can kind of like do that to yourself. So you could blow up something, either of yours, that you're looking to get rid of to help you get a little bit further along in that game. But something that I called out with a card like this here is that it can be used very politically. Like, let's say you are trying to make an alliance alongside with another opponent to help go up against one particular person. But the person you are trying to aid has fallen behind a little bit as far as their lance is concerned. Trade them out with this. Let them blow up something of your choice of their board or whatever, and then you give them the lander token, and that helps them get the color fixing they need to potentially get back into the game and assist you on the back end of that.
I like it. I would guess that this is just going in your Camball deck and is not replacing Stroke of Midnight.
It probably going alongside of it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's so much of what that deck wants to be doing. The Kendall Profiteering Mayor, which when your opponent makes a token, you make one as well. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you can, like, let's say you've gone around the cycle or you're on a turn where someone hasn't made a token, and you can just throw them a lander token. You get one as well. Does Campbell make them tapped?
Yes.
Tapped?
Copies
Okay, cool.
that
So
Campbell makes
come
come
the
tapped.
turn it comes in.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, exactly. You can give them a rampant growth, and then on your following turn, in a white-black deck especially that doesn't get access to a ton of extra land stuff, you just get a rampant growth as well.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about landers, why don't I start with my card then now? And I've got another lander card, as I was just implying here. The lander card I want to talk about is called Glacier Godm.
Oh, what a name.
The 5 and double green for a 6/6 Leviathan with trample. When it enters, you create a lander token. And landfall, whenever a land you control enters, creatures you control get +1/+1, vigilance, and haste until end of turn.
God, the haste is insane on that.
Yeah. So what I mean by like repeatable overrun is like you take something like, even let's talk the top end here of this, by the way. Like this is like Craterhoof, everybody talks Craterhoof. And there's an argument that says that anytime you land Craterhoof ends the game, and that can be true. But let's say you end up in a situation where your creatures can only really start finishing the job up against one particular opponent. Now your Craterhoof has entered, done its thing. Now what do you do? Your 1/1s are still not going to be getting through any faster at that point. So something like Glacier Godm, you can have this sit on your battlefield, and all it just says there is anytime you do landfall, hey, guess what green is really good at doing is getting multiple land drops down into play, even outside of the lander token that this card makes by itself, You sit this friend down alongside a Scoot Swarm or something like that. You go landfall, your Scoot Swarms pop out all their additional Scoot Swarms, and then the Godmaw gives all of those +1/+1 vigilance and haste.
Nuts.
Yeah,
that's nasty, dude.
That's how you close out a game with a landfall thing without even needing to go and do a tutor on your End Raise Forerunners or your Craterhoof Behemoths or all those other ones that are like creature based that give the overrun effect.
Yes, it really is the haste that sells it for me on this one, because like +1/+1 and vigilance is good on a land to begin with. Like giving all of your creatures vigilance in Commander especially is ridiculous, because that means you can make it through the whole turn cycle with blockers in addition to attackers. But like having haste on it too means that you can just sequence playing all your creatures and then drop your land, and then you just get to do everything just by having this in play. It's so good.
Slam,
really,
right.
like a good reanimator target too. Like it's expensive, but like you're right, it will end the game once it comes in and just starts hitting the land drops.
Yep.
Gives you an extra land drop too in the lander. Like you're dead on. This thing's ridiculous.
It is super cool. Granted, it doesn't provide trample to all your other creatures, so that's a workaround in and of itself. But I do like the cool aspect of this as well, the landfall ability that it provides. It will give that to itself as well. So if you just drop this for 7 and then play your land for the turn, oops, here's a 7/7 with trample, vigilance, and haste.
Stupid.
That also made me a lander, so I get to do the same thing again next turn.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Exactly. This is that's kind of bananas, John. Really, really sick. Well, hey, we're talking about lander tokens. I'll throw something that sort of incidentally makes a lander token, but I think has other value elsewhere. This is the Dauntless Scrapbot. I love some graveyard hate, and I especially love graveyard hate that lets you continue to do graveyard stuff. So Dauntless Scrapbot is a 3 generic mana 3/1 robot. So this can go in any deck. When this creature enters, exile each opponent's graveyard and create a lander token. That's it.
Bajuka-bot.
This is, yeah, exactly. So this is the what was it called? Like Bajuka, like the Boggart thing, the MDFC from Modern Horizons.
Bogart Trawler, was it? Maybe?
I think it is Bogart Trawler.
The Oracle strikes back.
That's right. Thanks, Oracle. So it's sort of the equivalent to the creature side of that, where it's this 3 mana 3/1 that enters, except the Boggart Trawler only exiles one player's graveyard because it's a riff on Bajuka Bog. So the fact that this, for 3 generic mana, can snipe everybody's graveyard, not to mention blink shenanigans, not to mention any aristocrats reanimating it, whatever, if you're using your like Chthonian Nightmares or whatever to continue. Because again, you still get to do graveyard stuff. Most stuff that gets rid of all graveyards gets rid of all graveyards, including your own. This only gets rid of your opponent's graveyards. It's like a ley line of the void that just comes in, or like a rest in peace for like one time on your opponent's stuff. So you still get to play this in Aristocrats shells, in graveyard decks, because you can shut your opponents off from doing stuff while leaving your own in. And that is insanely valuable. There's just so few things that do that in a deck that would want a 3-1 anyway. It's just such a perfect inclusion as a value piece. And again, we've not talked about the fact at all that it makes a lander token when it comes in. So even at its worst case scenario, if there's nothing in graveyards, you can play this, it makes a lander token, and then you've got your Wayfarer's Bauble for later.
That's really sick. Yeah, blink target.
Such a good blink target. Oh yeah, because like again, if you're playing blink, you're probably in like white and blue or something like that. White and red if you're a freak like me. And you, worst case scenario, you continue to get these like rampant growths, your Wayfarer's Baubles off on your lander tokens that you need. Like those decks are really bad at ramping, so like being able to just continue to make these lander tokens every time that they enter, stupid good. So Dauntless Scrapbot goes in your decks.
Excellent. But it's a 3-1 as well, right?
It is a 3-1.
It trades up really, really high as well, even like when it's done doing the thing that it's doing.
100%. Yeah. There's so many like 4-mana 3/3 commanders that like you just have your 3-1 sitting there and they're just not going to swing at you with it.
But if it's sitting there with its high power, it runs the potential risk to be run into this next removal piece that I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
That is Cut Propulsion.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Not where I thought you were going.
Oh, yeah? Cut Propulsion is 2 and a red for an instant that target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. And if that creature has flying, it deals twice that much damage to itself instead.
That's nasty. It's so
That's
good.
so good, man. Like, okay, like in a nutshell, this reads in a way that like it's kind of like those green like broken wings shoot down kind of things where like, yeah, the intended purpose of a card like this is you absolutely shoot down a flyer. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's very cool applications. We've talked about this here before where like a lot of creatures have like offset power and toughnesses to each other. And especially if you're doing like any kind of like power and toughness boosting, or not even toughness boosting, those kind of like cards that just give a power boost. You know what I mean? They only increase on their power instead of their toughness. A card like this is, for lack of a better term, this is red being able to just cast murder on something, right?
This is very close to murder.
If something is equal in its power and toughness cost, then bam, it just, 5 damage to 5 toughness, kills itself. Easy.
For sure. I guess what it doesn't grab is like 4 5s on the ground. Like anything like that that's like a 0-1 or as you scale up from there. But like you said, like
that's where a card like this helps you finish off into a combat situation, right? Because this is an instant. So let's say you are in a situation where something is swinging in with a lesser power than its toughness. Hey, this now reads in a sense that your, the 4/5 will end up dealing 4 damage to itself. Oops, your 1/1 token can now take it out.
Yes.
Because it's now assigned 4 damage to itself. And also, by the way, just like with the emergency eject, this does not say creature and opponent control. So are you doing some degenerate swans, double damage to itself because it has flying?
Let's freaking go, dude.
Jeskai birds.
Jeskai burned.
Burned.
I tried my best on that one.
No, I just think this is really neat. Like last set we talked about the like self-destruct that was kind of a similar vibe to this sort of thing where like you take either something you control or it's targeting out at something like your opponent's control or and it's just it's hitting itself. You know what I mean? There's usefulness to cards like that. Even if this is say targeting a, because like you could play like red white like angels or dragons or some other thing that flies or whatever, there's a lot of flyers that do come with lifelink on themselves naturally. This is great in decks that are playing like Enrage, or if you're sitting behind something like Vigor that prevents the damage to itself and then just increases its power and toughness with 1/1 counters onto that thing instead.
I want to
there's
go back
so
and talk about the difference between self-destruct and something like this that you just talked about. Because self-destruct requires you to have a creature and there to be another target. Obviously,
yeah,
self-destruct you can throw to face because it's kind of closer to a fling. But like
yeah.
you said, this is much closer to murder, where there only needs to be your opponent's creature on the board that you want to get rid of. And I would say 85% of the time, it's going to fit in the criteria where this just kills it.
And again, doubly so if that thing is flying, which
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
red outside of dragons doesn't really do a whole lot of flying. So this is really nice anti-flying protection if you are strictly mono red.
Yeah, I'm saying this. I might be completely like making this up, but I would say that most playable dragons have equal power and toughness. They're almost always like a 4/4, a 5/5, a 6/6, or whatever.
Generally speaking, yep.
The flying angels are the ones that are like 3/4s, 3/6, whatever. Like that this still gets rid of. That like your problem would be like your siege rhinos or whatever on the ground. But even then, like you're in red. Like you've got ground. The problem when you're playing a red deck is dealing with flyers. That is typically your issue, is red doesn't get a ton of reach, or there's just not a ton of playable reach in red, and your flyers in red want to be attacking. So you're just not leaving up blockers for things. So having access to this where you can just clear a flyer for you to get through, or you can, use this when you don't have a flyer and you need to get rid of something that's going to be continuing to attack you. It doesn't matter if it's a 13/13, it doesn't matter if it's a 20/20, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's got what would it have to be, a 10/21 for it to not die, or something along those lines? Like a 4/9 wouldn't die to this, but like that doesn't exist.
Hey, it actually this does not shoot down an animated infinite guideline station, because that thing turned online as a 7/15. But
Okay. Don't disprove me on the podcast. No, you're right, John. You're right. You got me there. Hey, I'll tell you what can get rid of it, though, and has a little extra value along the way. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. I'm going to be honest with you. And it's just super exciting that it's an uncommon, so it's going to be super accessible. This is all Fates Stalker. And I know you knew I wanted to talk about this one.
I'm curious about that.
This is 3 and a white for a 2/3 Drix assassin. That's a new species in this set. When it enters, you exile up to one target non-assassin creature until this creature leaves the battlefield, which we've seen plenty of times. But it has warp for 1 and a white, which is you can cast it for its warp cost, and then it gets exiled on the end step, and you get to cast it again later for its main cost. So the value of having warp on this thing is ridiculous. It reminds me so much like Touch the Spirit Realm, where it had the cycling or the channel cost or whatever, and you kind of chose between, do I blink something until the end of turn, or do I get to permanently get rid of something on this enchantment, on this Oblivion Ring? All Fates Stalker kind of gives you the best of both worlds on that, where you can warp it in for 1 and a white, exile something. Let's say it's something you control, like it's your Dauntless Scrapbot, because you want to exile the graveyards again. You can warp this in, exile your Dauntless Scrapbot until it leaves the battlefield, which will be end of turn. As it warps away, you get your Scrapbot back, you get your ETBs. And then on turn 4, or when you have 4 mana available again to recast it from exile, then you can permanently snag something until it leaves the battlefield and sits there. This is really great in a blink deck, because it's just another kind of a loop system of exiling other things. But like that's sort of the floor of the value of it. The ceiling is like warping this in and getting someone's token that like is massive. If they've Irenicus's Vile duplication and made a copy of their commander that's sitting there as a token, you can warp this in, exile the token until all Fate Stalker leaves the battlefield. Oops, the token fizzles. So it's really good at snagging things like that. It's really good at getting you extra value off of your ETBs from that warp. And then late game, you can bring it back in as a piece of removal. It also, I think one of the sneaky upsides of warp is for like hand disruption protection, because it just sits in exile and you can cast it from wherever. Not to mention the things that you'd be playing this with that care about casting cards from exile. Like I play, a Rocco Street Chef deck that has so many when you cast a spell from exile or when you play a land from exile or whatever triggers that warp just is unbelievably good with. Like There's Faldorn. There's just a ton of really good, like when you play something from exile, you get extra value off of it. That this is just you're squeezing every little bit of value out of this thing that you can, and it just provides you so much on the printed text of it.
Yeah, not to mention, I think we had heard a little story about this from our Discord as well, but like the shenanigans you can do of like blinking away your own warped thing so that
Yes.
it exits, re-enters. You kind of talked about this similar method with like playing Tanic as a commander as well, where like, oh, there's these cool tricks with a card like this that it can come in, save something else that has been temporarily put down into play, and then the thing that you exiled away will come back in and you get that permanently.
Yeah. Nuts. Again, like I'm talking almost strictly the floor of the value for this thing. And then as the game goes on and as you're playing it in different strategies, you just crack it wide open.
Sick. That's very, very fun. Also a Drix, a cool new creature type. I like it's the only thing that's really
relevantly, it's also an assassin.
Hey, for all you Assassin's Creed enjoyers, we
That's
see
right.
you out there.
For your free running.
Ooh, so what will we get this here? You could cast this for its white. You can warp it. It also gain free running.
It triggers free running because an assassin dealt damage to someone. Let's go, dude.
That's real silly. All right. Well, speaking of silly, I want to talk about probably the strangest equipment in this set.
Okay. I think I know what you're gonna say.
Let's talk about Atomic Microcizer.
Yep.
Yeah, you a fan of this one? All right.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so weird. Let's talk about this here. So, Atomic Microcizer is a blue mana, just a single blue, for an equipment. It gives an equipped creature +1/+0. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, choose up to one target creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn and has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn, and then it equips for 2.
All right. Talk me through this one.
So let's break this down here. So if you, the cool thing on that center block of it says there that when the equipped creature attacks, you get to choose up to one target creature. Firstly, it is up to one to target. So if you don't want to be targeting anything else, you don't have to. Secondly, it can target itself when it's going to combat. So if you modify that to target itself with its own ability, yeah, it drops down to its base power toughness 1/1. But the equipment itself is still giving the +1/+0. So at minimum, the creature that you have this equipped to, if you target it itself, it would at least be swinging in as a 2/1 unblockable, right?
Definitely.
And then other cool stuff about it is that it just says up to one other target creature. So you don't have to target the thing that's equipped. You can target anything else that you might be attacking with on your battlefield as well. And that's the most interesting part about this equipment here is there are a metric ton of very cool commanders and creatures just as a whole who do very strong and powerful things based on if they're able to connect with an opponent. And chances are in a 4-player commander game, especially rolling into like say the late game, there are instances where your creatures say on the ground without any other forms of evasion, they're just not going to be able to swing anymore. They get so gummed up on the power and toughness across everything else on everybody else's battlefield. But in the instance of a card like this, you're not really going to care too much about how big your actual card itself is. You're just looking for that combat damage trigger. There's lots of commanders that do things like that. So either equipping this onto something that wants to be targeting itself to give unblockable, or you already are equipping this onto an unblockable threat and want to make something else unblockable. And the last part about this is that it only just modifies to make the base power and toughness 1/1. This is not even taking into account anything else that would already be on the target creature that you're choosing, like enchantments or other ongoing effects like the Godsire we talked about at the beginning of the show, or like +1/+1 counters and things of that nature. So you're looking to get something really, really large who has counters and such on them, get those in like crazy. The immediate one I'm thinking of is Titus from Final Fantasy, right? Like he's a commander that deals with counters and wants to be going into combat all the time.
True. Yeah. Dude, and you've not even mentioned the fact that you can target your opponent's creatures with this. If you want to be attacking in, and they have a creature, you can just turn it into a 1/1. It keeps all of its abilities and everything, but like, let's say they're hiding behind this wall, this even like, okay, they've, you're super late in the game and they've gotten their like Eldrazi Titans or whatever, and you can just like Atomic Microcizer and turn it into a 1/1 and then force their hand into like, do I want to block with this? Do I not want to block with it? So there's even extra value beyond that. But I do think that targeting your own creature with this to give it the unblockable. Oh, because obviously the can't be blocked doesn't matter if you target your
opponent's creature. Sure, but that is a cool angle.
Right, exactly. And targeting your own creature with it, I think, is canonically Ant-Man getting really small and crawling up Thanos' butt and then expanding. This is I think this is canonically how that works. I mean, it's even depicted in the art. He's shrinking down, and then you get through everything and then expand back up after combat. So this is how I like to view Atomic Microcizer.
Play this equipment. It's very good for unblockable strategies. Please move on, Joseph.
100%. Hey, speaking of ants, which are insects, let's talk about Seedship Broodtender.
Okay.
Seedship Broodtender is a black and a green for an insect citizen. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. And then for 5 mana and sacrificing this creature, you can return target creature or spacecraft from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So I love cards like this, man, that just have like early game, comes in, it's on a super good body, mills those cards as it comes in, so it fuels itself. So even if you have nothing else going on that's filling your graveyard for the turn, like you've got this Seedship Broodtender. It's going to sit there, and then when you've got 5 mana and you've got something great in your graveyard, you can just crack it to reanimate something. This is like everything I want to be doing in a reanimator deck. Just playing something like this, milling some cards, reanimating things.
Yeah, it's really neat. We've seen a lot of these Golgari themed, like, oh, they self-mill some cards and then eat themselves away later to be able to get those things back out of your graveyard as well. But
it's pretty rare that we get one that does both milling and reanimating all in one. You usually get one or the other.
Also, the fact that it only just sacrifices itself. It does not exile itself either. So you sacrifice this to your graveyard, then you bring it back into play by some other means. I see here that like the mana value on this thing is real cheap. I'm thinking like an early game Meren card. Like you only have a few of the experience counters ready to go. This comes back in, mills you some card, kills itself to reanimate something else, and then as you are continuing to build up those experience counters, it can keep coming back into play until you have enough ready to start animating the big threats.
Definitely. And if for whatever angle this plays into, you don't have to tap it to sacrifice it. So you can attack with it, you can crew, you can station, whatever, and then you can sacrifice it, which is cool. It works with spacecraft as well. It's one of the only things that like reanimates a spacecraft outside of another card I'll probably talk about later. But it's cool that it interacts directly with spacecrafts. And it has the functionality of it can station and then sacrifice itself to reanimate something else.
Yeah, that's really neat. We love cards like these. They're just good engine synergy pieces to help make sure your deck is flowing and doing the thing that it wants to do while giving you long-term value in both the early game and the late game.
Definitely. One of the things I love about this episode that we do every release cycle is we get to talk about the importance of having cards like this and having like your vegetables in your deck. Like if you just slam your deck full of bombs and it doesn't have anything like this that's just going to be fueling your strategy, you've just built a glass cannon that sometimes for sure is going to completely pop off, but only sometimes. Whereas cards like this just give inevitability. They fuel your strategies and just allow you to have broader reach and more #flexibility in your gameplay.
But I hear you saying, Joseph, what if your opponents are sitting behind all of this high synergy stuff like the Brood, whatever that thingy was, What if they're sitting back here behind all of this? I scrolled off the card. I don't care about remembering names. Right. What if they're hiding behind these and it's something that you absolutely think yourself like, ooh, boy, that's a cool permanent you've got over there. What if I can have that? instead. We're going to talk about the weirdest control magic you've ever seen. This is Tractor Beam.
I do want to talk about it, actually.
Tractor Beam for 2 and double blue is an aura. It enchants a creature or a spacecraft. When the aura enters, you tap the enchanted permanent. You control the enchanted permanent, but the enchanted permanent does not untap during its controller's untap step.
Talk to me about why you would play this over control magic.
Well, you wouldn't. Control magic is just better, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's, you know, this is, it's just an interesting idea that, like, if they are sitting on something, because the floor, obviously, this is bad in the sense of the thing you are stealing does not untap, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if you steal a creature, it's not going to be a creature for the sake of being able to go into combat for, you know, at least without having your own pieces down in play that, like, oh, you can force untap the creature when it's on your side of the battlefield. You know, you can still play around with that aspect. But no, to answer your question, no, this is not better than control magic, obviously. But, you know, if you don't want to include control magic at all, there's some use for being able to have a card like this, because a commander, we have lots of different types of cards in our decks that just do ongoing static effects. You know, you had just talked about that Golgari card that, you know, that has its own sacrifice ability onto it, that if you're in the right colors per se, you would be able to do your own sacrifice of that creature. You know, I talked about the Godmaw thing. You know, you get the landfall on your side. That still all triggers, even if the card itself doesn't untap. You know what I mean? Other cool stuff that's got like really sick activated abilities that either have like just you pay mana into them, or they're just straight up flat, they're activated abilities. You know, you steal those creatures from your opponents and then you just have it now.
Oh, definitely. Stealing some, I mean, this is way too high powered for like what we're talking about, but like if you steal like a cannon, you still get access to like all of the things that it does. Or if like, you know, a Gretchen Titchwillow or things like this that have mana sinks in them that don't require tapping, you just get access to them. My question to you was a little bit rhetorical, because I do think this is a really good card. And in any deck where you want to be playing control magic, you obviously have access to like control magic, which is a good version of this. All of the other versions of control magic are usually more expensive, or the cheaper ones or similarly costed ones
have some kind of other drawback on
them.
They
have some downside to them. So this feels like the lowest amount of downside, because all it does is just keep that creature tapped until you, and again, like, yeah, like let's say it's an artifact and you're playing, you know, your keys and your voltaic keys and your sonic screwdrivers and things that have access to just untap things. That's such an easy, like, it's really easy to untap things is what I'm trying to say. So this is just control magic too.
I'm interested. I'm just looking at this now. Actually, I'm curious if like maybe the downside of this would actually make this a safer bet to play over control magic. Because like, what's going to be one of the biggest downsides when you play a card like control magic? Oh, the opponent's commander is now over on your side of the battlefield, now swinging in and killing them. That thing is going to eat removal in a heartbeat. But what if you're control magic that thing and it's just locked down, tapped on your side of the battlefield?
Yeah, so true. I think like in this hypothetical scenario where me and you are playing against one other person, if I don't like the third person's commander and you tractor beam it and you're just like, I'm just going to gain control of this and keep it tapped here for a second. And even if you're getting some amount of value off of it, if I don't like that commander, I still don't like it, but I like it way better tapped on your board than I like it on player 3's board. As compared to, like you said, control magic, where you're like, well, I'm just going to take this problem and then now I'm the problem. So yeah, it's such a
you made this problem.
Piece.
I'm the problem now.
Look at me. I'm the problem now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Tractor Beam is sweet. It also, like, man, what a cool card. Like the art is sick on it. The idea of it is so awesome. I think that control magic and like gaining control of your opponent's stuff is significantly underplayed. Like it's just such a good ability. It's usually on an enchantment, which is just harder to remove than anything else. Obviously, you've got your, you know, Imprisoned in the Moons, you've got your Lignifies, stuff like that just kind of permanently, quote unquote, deals with an opponent's thing. But what this does is it gets it off of their board. So like any of their Thassa's or Conjurer's Closets or whatever that would just blink their commander away, they just don't have access to anything that doesn't say their own stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, precisely.
really
My
sick.
only
And yeah, like you said,
my
you can just now hide behind it.
my only real problem with this card is that there are no tractors on this card. 0 out of
Not
10,
a single
unplayable.
tractor to be seen. Oh, that's wild. All right. I'm going to take us away into some uncharted territory here. This is maybe me being a toxic player. This is maybe me being a poisonous player. Or an infective player.
Is it
Let's talk
the
Virulent
robot?
Silencer. It's the robot assassin. Free running. So this is 3 generic mana for Virulent Silencer. It's a 2/3 robot assassin that whenever a non-token artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. If a player has 10 or more poison counters, they lose the game.
Wow.
This is ridiculous, dude. It's so good. You know, I love my artifacts. You know, I love my vehicles. You know, I love all of these non-token artifact creatures. And I really see this as like a lord for non-token artifact creatures, because if you start dealing poison damage as compared to regular damage, like if you start dealing poison counters as compared to regular damage, you reduce the amount of damage you have to deal by 75%. So this really it kind of 4x's the power of your creatures that they have. So this is like a ridiculously good non-token artifact lord. So if you're playing any affinity stuff, again, I really want to try this out with some vehicles, since it just speeds that deck up significantly.
Yeah, I thought about including this card when I made the Kilo spacecrafts deck, because obviously that would be a great deck to include something like this. You drop this down, get a spacecraft to hit at least every single one of your opponents. Now everybody is sitting on poison for Kilos proliferating to actually maybe win you the game in that deck.
The fact that it says non-token kind of keeps it in check a little bit, because it has to be a real card that you're playing. It can't be copies of something. It can't be tokens. It just has to be like the cards themselves. So if you're playing any type of like I said, affinity strategy, where you're playing your Ornithopters and you're playing your Thought Monitors, all of these things. Or again, I really think this is strongest with vehicles, or spacecrafts, or space stations, or things like that are these permanents that want to be attacking, and they're just a bit slower, so you need to speed the game plan of it up. The Virulent Silencer really puts a clock on your opponents for any of those things. Not to mention the fact that, like, if you have 5 flying non-token artifact creatures and you drop your Virulent Silencer, you could just take 1 player out of the game if they don't have blockers for it. Like, this is really good with evasive things.
I'm interested in the opposite end of that as well, by the way. If you've got 1 evasive non-token artifact creature and 5 Virulent Silencers, because you could make tokens of this and it works, which is significantly easier to do in like artifact blue strategies. There's tons of ways to make token copies of a creature, because even though the silencer won't work on those other token copies of itself, the poison counter trigger would stack.
That's true. You're so right.
What a stupid target for Rite of Replication, right?
Oh my
You're
God,
in
yeah,
blue,
or like mechanized production.
Yeah, now that
poison counters, and then it's going to make a copy of itself, and I'm going to hit you for 4 poison counters. If you have any way to prevent this, and this carries on any further, I'm going to win with the mechanized production. All right, can I give you my hear me out?
Hear me out. Let's go.
This hear me out, I think, is going to replace my Pauper commanders.
Oh?
So this is biomechan engineer. Green and a blue for a 2/2. It's an uncommon, obviously, since we're talking about the commander of a Pauper deck. When this creature enters, you create a lander token, and then for 8 generic mana, no tapping required, you draw 2 cards and make a 2/2 colorless robot artifact.
Okay.
So this is Gretchen Titchwillow, which is a menace in Pauper Commander. Similarly, it's a 2 mana thing. Gretchen only has a 4 mana ability to like rampant growth, growth spiral. This is 8 mana, so it's double that, but does not matter when you've made infinite mana. This is an infinite mana outlet on your commander that has extra value when it enters of making you the lander token. So as many times as you're casting this, you cast this, maybe it gets bolted or something. You recast it again. You just stock up on these lander tokens. At minimum, this will be going into the 99 because I play Malcolm and Eject, which cares about making infinite mana and it cares about sacrificing artifacts. So this already slots into there, and I have a suspicion that having access to the lander token on turn 2 and also the infinite mana outlet in the command zone is so powerful in that deck already that, again, like what I'm trying to do is set up a loop with like not Palincron. Oh my God. The Drake.
Peregrine Drake.
Peregrine Drake. Peregrine Drake, an Archaeomancer, and something that displace that blinks two creatures.
Ghostly Flicker, all those.
Exactly. That loops that, makes infinite mana, and then sets up you need to find some way to use that infinite mana. Obviously, having it in the command zone is the way to do it so that you constantly have access to pay 8. And the best thing about it is you're with Gretchen, you're drawing your deck, but then you have to figure out what to do from there. There should be some way to win the game. Like for me, it's capsize. But even if there's somebody has something against the capsize, you're also making a 2/2 robot every time you activate this and draw 2 cards. So you're filling the board with these 2/2s so you can safely pass the turn, even if your like capsize or whatever your like infinite mana thing fails. So you can just safely go, I'm just drawing my deck. I'm going to make 40 2/2s probably, and then just pass and carry on about your turn, saving up all of your protection that you have in hand and everything so that you can just get back to you and swing with your 2/2s at minimum. And best case scenario, your capsize fires off, passes with no permanence on the board, and then you're good to go.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really sick. I enjoy that a lot as far as like dumping infinite mana into something like this. I draw out, I win, make robots.
It's pretty rare to get an infinite mana outlet on something that also has additional value, like I said with that lander token, or just being it's a 2/2. Like this is a totally fine body for 2 mana. That just having so much value crammed onto one thing, I think in my case, is slightly better than the Malcolm Eject combo.
I'd be curious to see if you give that a try. Yeah, I'd like to see this at the helm of a deck like that.
I'll give her a little spin.
This set was so fun to go through and talk about. The theming, the ideas, the gameplay mechanics, all of this, having gone to play pre-release for this set as well, by the way, and looking forward to buying some product of this here in the near future as well. At time of recording, it's not out quite yet. It's been neat. It's been so fun. And I've very much enjoyed being able to talk about this for the last couple of weeks.
I love it, man. Yeah. I don't know if this will land in my favorite sets, but it's definitely a good one. Like, I've been shocked at how much synergy is built into the set. Like there's just things that interact with themselves really nicely. There's the archetypes are really clearly defined in this set, and they sort of create some new ones. Like warp is just an awesome mechanic. I've found myself really drawn to warp and all of the value that it creates. If you want to hear me just ramble more about warp, you can listen to our last episode, which was unique commander builds, where I talk about Tanic. And so now that this set is on Arena, I built it as a brawl deck, and oh my goodness, it's just so much fun. So I'm heavily considering swapping out O'Hare Ashenil as my mono red deck in place of Tanic Steadfast Second, just to get to play this cool mechanic. So yeah, I think they're doing some cool things with it. I think the theming of it's awesome. The art of it is awesome. All these things that I do care about. So I'm stoked to see kind of where it lands as the year continues on. Because we've got Spider-Man left, and then we've got Avatar: The Last Airbender. Spider-Man, I'm not too excited about. Avatar, I'm deeply excited about. If you're watching this, you're about to see 2 brothers who grew up watching Avatar: The Last Airbender just lose their absolute minds for about 4 weeks. That is, stick around for that. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. But yeah, overall, this has been a good one. I would say like it's sort of a no news is good news situation for me, where it's like this wasn't like Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This isn't like a hat set. This isn't just like, oh, they did Magic, but in sci-fi. Like it genuinely feels like its own carved out world. So really, really stoked about it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it so much as well.
Yeah. Excellent. It's so cool. And we would now love to hear from all of you about what did you think about Edge of Eternities. Come talk to us about all the cool new decks you've built, some of your sick pulls that you've done. How did you do at some things like your pre-releases? Have you been playing on Arena? How's your drafts been going? Let us know down in the comments down below. Talk to us about anything you're interested in about Edge of Eternities, and if this is going to end up being a favorite set of yours for in the future. And you can also come chat with us about everything related to Magic and both deck brewing, game nights, memes, all that fun stuff on our Discord channel, which is linked in the description down below.
Absolutely. And then, if you still haven't gotten enough of us, you can find us on Blue Sky. That's our social media of choice. We have the @MTG Thoughtcast is our official channel, and then both of us have our individual channels, as well as John-Thoughtcast or Joseph-Thoughtcast, to varying degrees of use. I find myself using the main channel a lot more than my personal one, but I'm still around there. If you really want to get in touch with me after all of those things, you can send us an email at mtgthoughtcast@gmail.com. And that brings us to the conclusion of the episode. Thank y'all so much for watching. Once again, shout out to Heavy Play, sponsors of the show. That's MTG Thoughtcast at checkout for 10% off of your order. And we will see you so soon back here on the MTG Thoughtcast. Thanks for watching.
We're done edging.
We're done. Edged to completion.